Hello, book connectors. Welcome back to the Book Connection. Visitors, should you happen upon the channel, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you here. Hello, book connectors. Welcome back to the channel. Once again, I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil, and I am here with the last half or the second half of the book, I Know I've Been Changed by Rashonda Tate Billingsley. So, at the end of the first half of this book, we left off with Raydella coming clean to Miles about her family and telling him about them having a family reunion there in Houston. Miles was not all as upset as she thought he may have been. So he said that he would go along with her, and he did. But boy, okay, this is going to probably be the funniest thing all the way through this whole chapter. If you have the book, or if you're thinking about it, I want you to, what you call it when you fold that corner of a book so you'll know where to come back to it. I can't remember what you call it. But anyway, Chapter 20. This thing was funny all the way through. Let's see if I can summarize it. They arrive, Miles and Raydella. They sit in the car for a few minutes. So finally, Miles was like, well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. And Raydella was still a little reluctant, but when he opened his car door, she grabbed her purse and she got on out the car too. And before they can get in there good, Aunt Iola is the first one that sees them. So she comes up, well, look who returned from the dead, blah, blah, blah. And she speaks. And slowly everyone starts to gather around them. So Raydella speaks and she introduces Miles as her fiancé. Whew. Otis, Iola's husband. These names. But instead of him just shaking Miles' hand saying, hello, how you doing? Nice to meet you. He just proceeds right off the bat, hey boy, is all them your teeth? Miles looked confused. Raydella got very nauseated. And he walks up to Miles. Hey, boy, you hear me? I said, all them your real teeth. Finally, Miles closed his mouth, and he was like, yes, they are my real teeth. Otis goes up to this man and opens his mouth, Miles' mouth, and starts to get a deeper look inside that man's mouth. Iola, come here over. Look at his teeth. Iola says, get out that man's mouth, Otis. Get out of his mouth. And he's like, And I wonder what it is what he used and stuff. And by this time, Mama T walks over. She was like, it's called toothpaste, Otis. Try it. You might like it sometime. So he eventually lets Miles go, but he walks off mumbling, talking about, I don't know what he's using. He must be using that new extra strength Colgate. And Mama T looked at Miles and apologized again. She was like, yeah, don't pay him no, never mind. He's just got some sort of a preoccupation with teeth. Then, okay, Shondella pops up. Well. Princess Diana is back from the dead. So you have to remember that Raydella and Shondella really do not have the best relationship. They can just pretty much tolerate each other, be it in person or out in public. So then 3 little girls ran up behind Shondella, and Raydella looks at the girls And she says, this must be Portia, Alexis, and Mercedes. And she pointed at each one of the girls, but they were all wrong. Shondella was like, no, that's not Portia. That's Alexis. Alexis was the smallest one of them all. And then she pointed to like a medium-sized girl, and she was like, that's Portia. And then this other girl here is our cousin Essie Mae's daughter. She didn't say what the daughter's name was, but she did say that that was their cousin's daughter. And then she says, don't even know your own niece's names. And she walks up. Then, I believe my favorite one was Ray Della's flamboyant gay male cousin. He's loud and brash and everything. He walks up, well, somebody call 911. Why? Iola asked. 'Cause my heart is about to explode just being in the presence of this fine specimen here. And, he said, my name is Maurice, but they call me Sugar. Otis says that's 'cause he's got a whole lot of sugar in his tank. And then Mama T says again, that boy's name is Maurice. Maurice says, yeah, my name is Maurice. My friends call me Reese, but my family calls me Sugar. But you, sweet thing, you can call me whatever you want. He had on a fluorescent green top, had it unbuttoned to the center of his chest, and then he had it tied in a knot, and he had on some black boot-cut leggings. Oh, boy, you couldn't tell him that. He was just strutting around there. He said, he said, my family don't like me being gay, but I have always known that I was gay. Then he starts to twirl around and flutter his hands. He's like, I've always known I was gay ever since I was a little girl. And when he approached Miles looked at Ray Della, and then he just kind of gradually steps behind her like, hide me or protect me. And she's like, what you stepping behind me for? You the man. But he finally moves on there. He finally goes on. Next up is the family thought. This is Iola and Otis' daughter, Nikki. Nikki is the twins. Remember when the twins, Ray Della's cousins, came to her job after their brother had committed a battery of offenses on the same day, and came there wanting Ray Della to be able to get him out of prison. Okay, they are her brothers. And she was like, well, dang, Ray Della, you done good. Then she was like, hi, my name is Nikki. Like the Prince song. I met a little girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. Mama T said, Nikki, that's enough. And then so Nikki started laughing. Then she says to Miles, I didn't catch her name. And that's when Ray Della stepped up. She was like, that's because he didn't. That's because he hasn't thrown it. And so she knew by Ray Della's tone that she might need to step back, or at least I thought that's what she knew she needed to do. But instead, she turns around and starts to bump and grind on Miles' leg. I don't understand why some people are so bold. Yes, Ray Della brought him there and he's meeting people, but she's constantly telling them that he is her fiance. And even if he wasn't her fiance, if they were together as a couple, he still would have been the boyfriend. How bold must you be to just go and take liberties that Sugar and Nikki took. But yeah, she does go ahead and move on. Then here comes Uncle Isaiah. Hey, city boy, you know how to play bones? And Clyde Jr. I hope I don't want to offend or unnerve anybody, but when I hear names that I just think are just, oh boy, outrageous, I'll laugh or whatever. But yeah, Clyde Jr. is almost 40 years old, and he looks at Niles when Isaiah asked him about the game of dominoes. And Niles says, yeah, I've partaken in playing dominoes on occasion. I probably could teach you a few things about the game. And Clyde Jr. said, Isaiah, you hear him. You hear pretty boy over there with them all manicure hands. You probably don't know what it's like to play no game. And so they laughed. Everybody around was laughing and stuff. So when they actually got ready to play dominoes, Raydella felt she needed to go and be over there at the table while they were playing, just in case somebody got out of pocket, she could put them in a place. I guess that was directed more or less at Nikki, because she did look around one time and catch Nikki out there touching herself and dancing and going on, and she caught Niles looking at her. Well, you know, when she saw him, he redirected his attention or whatever. So she goes over and sits down. And then Clyde Jr., almost 40 years old, he took Raydella off because I would say he was like, hey, Isaiah, you hear Rachel's friend, Raydella's friend? He says he's partaking in playing dominoes. So everybody started laughing. Yeah. Raydella done got herself an Oreo. Oreo. Everybody started laughing. Raydella was a little hot under the collar, but she kind of kept it in place. Her family, according to Raydella, she feels like her family thinks because Niles is educated and speaks well, that he must be biracial, black and white, but the black is what showed up. But that wasn't the case, so they go on and they play. Then she sees Nikki's brother June, one of the twins that went to Raydella's job that day. He looks up and he says, hey, Raydella, I talked to Kevin. He told me to tell you thanks. And he had like a scowl on his face. So they go on to play. June is at another table playing with some guys that Raydella doesn't know. So his partner made the wrong move, I guess, because they ended up losing. And June got mad, and everything just kind of went left after then. And there were words back and forth because whatever the man did, June felt like it was a stupid move, and he can't understand why he would even do that. So it just kind of went wrong for no right reason. And after a while, the guy finally says, well, your woman wasn't complaining when I was with her last night. He didn't have to do that, but he did. So now, June and the guy are actually into a physical altercation. Tables have flipped, chairs have flipped, dominoes scattered all over the place. Mama T, who had been tending the grill, looks up and she comes over and she breaks them up. She got Isaiah somebody else to separate June and his friend. Then Mama T says, y'all got to learn how to act like civilized citizens. You don't sit up and come to other folks' stuff, especially, and clown like that. So the guy was like, he said, no, June was the one that said to Mama T. He said he slept with my woman last night. Mama T gonna say he probably did. You know how that woman is. She'll sleep with anybody at any time. I'm like, whoa, okay then. And then she says, but y'all don't do stuff like that. Now y'all, if you cannot play like civilized people, I want these tables and chairs and dominoes picked up. And if you can't play any better, I'll just take the dominoes and put them up. Now, pick them up. She said, pick them up hard as all get out. But they jumped up and they got that stuff picked up. Then she looks at the other guy and she was like, and who are you? What's your name? And Clyde Jr. hollered, that's Trigger Man. That's his best friend. And so she said, well, Trigger Man, what is your real name? No, she said, who are your people? He said, my grandmama is Betty. Mama T said, Betty Graves is your grandmama? He said, yes, ma'am. He's talking with his head held down. Because when I was growing up, things in the South have changed. But when I was growing up, the one thing you did not do was disrespect your elders, whether they were related to you or not. You just didn't do that. And so he was like, yes, ma'am, but he would look at her. And she was like, oh, Betty is going to be so hurt to find out that her grandboy is out here acting like a heathen at somebody else's family reunion. So they get all the stuff put up, and she said, okay, now what's your name? And that's when Clyde Jr. said, that's Trigger Man. That's June's best friend. She said, what did your mama name you? Because I know your mama ain't laid up and gave birth to you and named you no Trigger Man. And he said, Solomon. She said, Solomon? He said, yes, ma'am. Then she was like, have you ever been in prison? He was like, yes, ma'am. Now, I don't understand where that came from, Mama T. But she said, well, see, you're back out here in civilized society. You have to leave that stuff back there in prison. Now, y'all get that stuff picked up. So they did. They got it all picked up. And that was pretty much, let me see, who else am I leaving now? Oh, yeah. That was a busy event. So, Shondella's youngest, or the smallest, Alexis, she climbs on top of the picnic table. I guess they had some hot dogs that they had already fixed up, put on buns and put whatever toppings. So the little girl, Alexis, climbs on top of the picnic table and grabs a hot dog. Shondella saw her, and she was like, Alexis, get down off that table before I beat your tail. And she gets down, and Shondella swats her on her butt. But by the time that little girl got off that table, she had managed not only to get another hot dog, but she managed to take a bite off of it before she got popped. And then Raydella was like, you don't need to be cursing your kids. All right, Raydella, mind your business. You know what that's all about. So they had a few words about that. But that was pretty much the way that whole chapter went. It was just one thing right after the other. And as for me, I laughed all the way through it. But I believe that chapter was chock full of laughter is because the rest of the book, it's more of a serious matter. Let me see if I can sum it up. Raydella and Miles return back to Houston after the reunion. They go to work. And all of that is all fine, well, and good. Well, Miles started all that other crazy stuff about he would tell her he can meet her for dinner or they're going to go do this and that and the other. And he always had one reason or another why he always stood her up. So his family knows that she's pregnant. And he all of a sudden wants to put a rush on getting married. And it is because he had planned to run for mayor that next election. And he didn't need to have any children out of wedlock. She didn't necessarily agree with it, but she did go ahead and they did get married after they got back. And the family did go to the wedding and everything was all nice and well and stuff. And so they're back at home, and like I said, he keeps standing her up. One time he put his mother up to offering to go with her to the doctor. He all of a sudden had some meeting that he couldn't get out of, and his mother was free. But Raydella chose to go on her own. So she was driving along, and all of a sudden, she sees a reflection of someone who looked very familiar to her. And she goes on, and she finds out that it's Miles. Miles is outside some office building, groping and kissing and fondling all over his secretary, Karen. Karen is the one who kept making up excuses as to why Miles couldn't answer the phones lately every time she called. Now she knows it's because her recent husband is carrying on with Karen. So, emotions were really high. She's already pregnant and she's barely married, and she sees her husband in action with his secretary. But ladies, it wouldn't matter who the woman was. The fact is that you were still cheating. So she goes off and she runs over Miles. And so he, is off to the hospital. She gets to work and she finds out basically that she had gotten fired because she had the #1 talk show, and it would not look good for the #1 talk show host to be out here being human. I'm not a volatile or violent person. I'm not even a combative person. But just because I'm not that way don't mean I won't get with you if the situation presents itself. So anyway, she knew after she went in that office that she really thought that she was actually just being reprimanded. Matter of fact, that's what her new boss, Dina, told her it was. But when Raydella got ready to go back to her office, that's when she tells Raydella, Dina tells Raydella that in essence she had been fired. Oh, Dina had gotten Stan, who also worked there at that same radio station, and Raydella felt like she had him in her pocket just like she did Richard. But at the end of the day, Stan had a job to do. And so he had to be there when Dina told her that they had to let her go because of what had happened. She looked to Stan and he just dropped his head. And she knew that it wasn't necessarily anything he could do once the decision comes down. You know, you just have to honor it. And so they escorted her out of the business. Well, she goes home and she doesn't really talk to anybody or do anything with anybody. She doesn't return phone calls. Shireen hadn't even talked to her since all of that happened. But one day, someone knocks on the door. She heard them, but she didn't respond. And this went on for quite a while. And so Raydella was like, that must be Shireen. Then she looks at the clock. She said, no, Shireen should still be at work. And no sooner than she completed that thought, Mama T says, Raydella, open this door. This is Mama T. And she was reluctant to let them in, but, you know, considering the family reunion and whatever else shenanigans that had been going on, she thought better of it. So she did get up and let Mama T in, and Shondella happened to be there too. Now, this was one time Shondella was mature enough to put their issues aside. She was there for her sister. And so Raydella was telling them her version of what went on. And they finally convinced her, you know, to go on back to Sweet Poke, Arkansas, at least rest up, and maybe, you know, you might find a way to get back to doing what you really love to do. She really did not want to, but, you know, now she knew she didn't have an income coming in anymore. She had a pretty good amount in savings, but she, you know, doing for other family members from time to time, her savings had taken a pretty good dent. But she does go home. Oh, let me back all the way back up. Now, I told you they got married. So then, like the day the family was getting ready to go back to Sweet Poke, Miles' mother wanted to have like a brunch before everybody left. So they were having mimosas, and they were going to watch a video of the ceremony that had taken place the day before. Only problem was when they put the VCR tape in, it wasn't their wedding ceremonies. All you could hear was moaning and groaning. And eventually, a face appears. And who is it? None other than Miles Jacobs. He is there having sex with strippers that were at his bachelor party. 2 of them. And so his brother, Mark, jumps up and he tries to cover the video up or snatch it out before Raydella really gets a good look at it, but it didn't work. Shondella was like, let her see this. Let her see this. And I can only imagine, no, I cannot imagine how humiliated his mother was to see her son carrying on like that. She probably wouldn't have wanted to see it if it had been Miles and Raydella, but she most certainly was taken aback when she found out that these were just random strippers that were at his bachelor party. So when Raydella sees this, because Mark did take the tape out, and when Shondella kept saying, let her see it, and Raydella was like, yeah, play the tape, and nobody wanted to move. Play the tape. So they ended up playing it. And when she saw what it was, he was like, Davy, that's not me. Really, that's the best you could come up with on the fly. But then he finally says, I was drunk. That was that. That was the night of my bachelor party. And then his brother Mark tried to take up for him, but there's really nothing you can say in situations such as that. So Raydella went and locked herself in one of the bedrooms, and that's where she stayed. From that morning, I think they were supposed to have the brunch like around 10. Everybody started gathering around 9:30. Raydella locked herself in that room, and she wouldn't answer a phone call, knocks at the door, anything. She cried herself to sleep. When she woke up, it was like 10:30 that night. And the next day, everybody was like, well, I know that hurt, but you just got married. And Shondella was like, that means nothing. You need to just let his trifling butt go. Blah, blah, blah. Raydella half listened or whatever. So eventually she got home, and he did try to stay away from her for a couple of days, but he eventually broke down and went back. He knew he had a whole lot of begging to do. He's like, so you just like that? You don't want to hear my version of what really happened? And she tried to argue this, and she's like, I'm carrying your baby, and you're out carrying on with strippers. She tried her best to be strong and face him, and so that she can go ahead and just get rid of him out of her life, her memory. Her and the baby would be okay somehow, some way. But he touched her and started whispering sweet words of affection. I guess she fell for it, and they ended up trying to make a go of it until that thing happened where she caught him with his secretary. So after that happened, she goes back to Sweet Poke, and she runs into her high school boyfriend's friend. Now, boyfriend, they dated off and on from 9th through 12th grade. And here's a little secret that apparently Mama T nor Shondella knew. And that was that Raydella had actually gotten pregnant by Reno in high school. He begged her and begged her not to get rid of the baby. But all she could see is that that baby would pretty much put a halt to her dreams and aspirations. And her boyfriend, Reno, was one of 11 children, and I think all of them were still at home. And because he really did not want her to get rid of the baby. But she did, and I thought that was very commendable of him not to really put that out there. No one seems to have known that she was pregnant except for the guy she used to pay for the, getting rid of the baby. His name was Felton. Felton was, I guess you consider him like a misfit. He didn't really have anything. Women just ignored him. They ain't pay him attention. But he did have money. That's how she went and laid her sob story on him, telling him that she was pregnant and that she really couldn't afford to have a baby right now. And Reno wants the baby, but he can't afford the baby either. She wants to go to school. She laid her whole life story out. So the guy Felton paid for the termination. Unfortunately for Raydella, though, all she was doing was looking at what she needed or would get out of the deal, because this man all of a sudden became obsessed with Raydella the whole time she was in Houston, Texas, and coming home every 3 or 4 years. He wasn't seeing her, and he didn't know how to get in touch with her. But he popped up once she came back, and this nut tried to make a go of it again. But still, Raydella wasn't having that, and he ended up trying to force himself on her in a violent way. But he got stopped before anything could happen. He ends up in prison. She is wanting to get back with Reno, but then she learns that he is married. Not only is he married, but he's happily married. And he and his wife are expecting their first child. They kissed one time, and then she went to kiss him again, and he just kind of politely pushed her back, and he explained to her, I did love you at one time. I really did love you. But that's in my past, and my wife is my present and my future. I think it shook her up for her to hear him sound so devoted to the wife as he had at one time been with her. But, she accepted it. She wasn't over here trying to cause strife or hiccups in his relationship with his wife. In fact, one day, the wife and Raydella ended up in the grocery store, and the wife spoke to Raydella. She let her know that she knew who she was. She let her know that she understood Raydella, the relationship she had once had with Reno. But all of that is all fine, well, and good. And the lady was rather plain looking and frumpy. But Raydella knew that in his heart of hearts, he could never be what he once was to her. And the wife made sure to let it be known that she knew her place within her husband's life. So I thought that was sweet. Oh, wow. I have about 20 more minutes. I want to try to get this book wrapped up. Now, it was another funny scene in the book talking about when Raydella's cousin June married his wife. I think they had like 5 children, and then they decided to get married. That was funny. But now I want to kind of move on to wrap up some of these other relationships. I want to talk about the relationship between Raydella and Shondella. They had about gotten to the point to where, like I said earlier, they were tolerant of each other, cordial if need be. But when the claws had to come out, they had to come out. They just dealt with it that way. Their biggest source of contention was whether or not to have a relationship with Rose, their mother. She's re-entered the story. Justin ended up needing a kidney transplant, and Shondella, Raydella, or Mama T, none of them were matches, and he was on the donor list. And one day, I don't know how Rose heard it, because she's back at Sweet Park, but she's not around her mother or her children. But she sneaks and tries to be in Raydella's presence, because although Raydella is not really warm or kind towards her, she's not mean or bitter like Shondella. I'm just going to come out and tell you, Rose, no, basically there is nothing you can do for me in my life. I heard you tell or heard that man tell you to get rid of us, and that's what you did. So no, there's no coming back from that. Ray Della was hurt. She really was, and all of that was to be expected. But Ray Della was more like me. Ray Della was, well, this is the only thing I guess we may have in common. I always want to get beneath the surface to try to understand where whatever's coming from and to see if it can be mended, you know. But Shondella, once you scorn her, then that's, what is it? There's nothing you can do to get back into her good graces. But she was glad to know that Rose was willing to see if she could be a good match for Justin. And she was. The operation was a success. Now, the relationship between, Rose and Ray Della talked more, but it never was like Rose going over to her mother's house, Mama T, and like, Ray Della, what you doing? It wasn't that type of talk. One time, Rose happened to be in the grocery store, and it's always the strangest thing. She just, all of a sudden, she's just there. She's grocery shopping one day, and when she gets in the checkout line, Rose said something to her because she walked up behind Ray Della. Gosh, Rodella. All right, Rose walked up behind Ray Della, so Ray Della really did not see her. It wasn't until Rose said something to her, and she looked behind her, she saw Rose. Rose convinced her to just hear her out just one time. And Ray Della tried not to, but she eventually gave in because, like I say, I guess people may say it's nosy, but to me, if I have been hurt or damaged or whatever Ray Della felt like she was going through, I would be trying to find out, what really went down. Because as children, I don't know, but I imagine probably saying to yourself now, what did I do or not do that made whoever leave me? And kids don't know that a lot of times it's not them, it's the adults. But when you're little and nobody's telling you anything and probably forbidding you to keep asking questions about it, then that just grows and it can turn either way. But anyway, she goes and she hears her mother out, and basically all Rose was saying was that, she ended up on drugs with, and I at the end of the book, I see that the man that I thought, I said that I didn't know if he was all of their fathers or if he was just one or two of the children. And I do know that the man that man Sam killed, he was, I believe he was, Shondella and Ray Della's dad both. Now, I don't know who the twins' dad was, but anyway, she explained that she had just got out of hand and she ended up addicted to heroin, and that forced her to live on the street and do things she otherwise just never would have thought she would have to do, like give up her kids. But she thought if she passed them off to her mother, Mama T, that things would be great between she and Sam, and for a while it was. But eventually he moved on to the next person, and that's why she eventually decided, she needed to get herself clean and try to be in her children's lives. So that's what that was. Now, if Shondella and Ray Della are in the same room and anything else comes up, okay, Well, yeah, it is what it is. I can deal with that. Okay. But Rose is the thorn that Shondella just cannot give in to. So, to me, if they respect each other's feelings, they should be able to get along as sisters. Ray Della would know not to bring Rose up and to Shondella, and Shondella would know, not to do anything to, make Ray Della question or go back and think over their childhood. You know what else that was sad? Ray Della blamed herself for their sister Jasmine, Justice's twin sister who died in the house fire. Turns out Mama T had gotten Shondella to go with her to take Justin to the doctor. He was in for some sort of procedure, and she had done it a lot. But this particular time, when she was there with Jasmine by herself, she was hanging out clothes, and she herself wasn't, but okay, if Jasmine was 6 when she died, so Ray Della was like 13 or 14. And so some little boy she had a crush on in school had stopped by. He was talking about wanting to kiss her. And she was willing, but she had her sister. And the boy finally talked her into sleeping off somewhere, and they kissed. Well, the fire ended up breaking out, and it killed Jasmine. That was a secret that Ray Della kept from everybody. Mama T, Miles, Shireen, Shondella, anybody. Well, and here at the end, we also learned that Mama T had a couple of confessions of her own she made. One of them is that all throughout the years that she was raising Rose's children, Rose had reached out, tried to connect with them on more than one occasion, several occasions. She reached out. But Mama T was so afraid of Rose coming back in their lives and then just going back only to leave them again. And so that was her excuse, because she knew Rose was still out there on those drugs. And for her, she felt that the best place for those children was with her. So she tells them that in front of Rose. And Shondella was like, well, you don't have to be trying to make up excuses or creating, saying things, Mama T. We know Rose wasn't here for us and this, that, and other, but that really happened, according to Mama T. And as I get ready to wrap it up, I guess I'll wrap it up on a somewhat lighter note. Well, it is lighter. Ray Della eventually ends up working in television there in Sweet Poke. It's the same thing, or the same type of job she was working in Houston. Obviously, it was a greater, a humongous, scaled back or down version, but she was still loving what she was doing there, right there in Sweet Poke. So she had started to find her own footing again. She was glad to be back in Sweet Poke. Shireen came to visit one time, and she just could not get over this newfangled Ray Della. She just didn't believe that Ray Della really was happy being back at home. But she was. So one night, she's sitting out on the porch. Well, not night. I think it was in the afternoon, though. She and Mama T were sitting outside, and Mama T is talking to her, and she told her that she had gone and talked to whoever it is that owned the local television station, and she put in a good word for Ray Della. And Ray Della was, reluctant to go. She's like, no, you need your own place. And, you grown and basically you've been married and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line was Mama T wanted Ray Della to get gone because although she was 75 years old, she was still finding that she was in need of vitamin D herself from time to time. And so Ray Della was like, Mama T, you're 75 years old. Because kind of find out Mama T been tipping with the deacon of the church. And he like 81. Ray Della was like, ooh. And when you know it, he just so happens to be strolling by while they're sitting out on the porch talking. And so they spoke. And he was like, oh, yeah, how you doing this evening? I thought I was just in the area, and I was just trying to see if you needed some wood chopped. His Mama T made Ray Della leave, and when she was leaving, the deacon go holler, and you need to take your time and make sure you get the wood chopped just the way Mama T likes it, okay? She's like, okay. So from that, I take it that, eventually Ray Della will come to find someone else to love and who loves her, and Mama T and her relationship with the deacon and the vitamin D will find its place in their relationships, and everybody will go on. Shondella will continue raising her children, and life goes on, as it really does in real life. So, book connectors, this concludes this book. I thank you all so much, and I'm sorry that it took me such a long time to get all of this up and done, but for me, it was worth it because it's one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors, and I laugh almost every time I read this book about the same stuff. You would think that I would already know that, but it's still funny to me. I just love when people can just weave intricate things like laughter or pain or something when it's just unexpected, like right here at the end of the book, and we find out that, Mama T Rose wasn't the villain necessarily that her kids thought she was. That was good to know. And then Mama T, I guess she said she was still living. So she had some enjoyment because Ray Della was the only one living with her. Oh, and Justin. Anyway, there is a list of questions at the end of this book. And if you read the book, listen to the questions and see how you would answer them. And then there are also some suggestions that were made that you would do, like if you belong to a book club. It just gave you different ideas and stuff you might would want to try. But overall, I am glad that I did this book. I know you're not going to always get a lot of likes and engagement, but it's still worth it when I look at the ones who do engage back. It's usually the same people, and I thank you for that. Subscribers, I thank you so very much for being subscribed. You just don't know. Visitors, feel free to join us so you can get in on all of the shenanigans that goes on over here on the Book Connection. And everyone, please like, comment respectfully, and share. Make sure your notifications are not only turned, your notification bells are not only turned on, but they are set to all. Why? Well, I'm sure you know that now, but I'll say it again anyway. That way, you will be notified every time I upload a video. And in the meantime, book connectors, remember this. As long as there are books around, there is always something to read. And until we read again, book connectors, be safe out there. And God bless.